Hello, welcome to my channel. This is American 3071 with another video for you. Today we will pick up where we last left off in the last video and talk about the Anglo-Afghan War, or Sikh-Afghan War, as this alternate history leads us to. In the last video, I talked about how the British made a deal with the Sikh Empire regarding peace terms. In exchange for land swaps that would favor the British security position, the Sikhs would get their aid in conquering Afghanistan up to Kabul. Why not all the nation was because the British had made a deal with the Russians to divide this land between them and the Sikhs, giving the Russians the northern portion of Afghanistan. This deal would have the Sikhs carefully wedged between both powers, the British in the south and the Russians to the north. It would be the same deal that the British and French will make in a couple decades later regarding Thailand and their Southeast Asian colonies. For now, though, the British needed to help the Sikhs achieve their goal of conquest. They brought in 5,000 professional troops, along with a healthy amount of supplies, including cannons, which will be incredibly helpful to the Sikhs. In spring 1855, with the ground thawing, the 40,000 strong contingent of the Khalsa army moved north, accompanied by 5,000 British Raj forces. Initially, the plan was set out to split the two armies and capture Kandahar and Kabul simultaneously to rapidly conclude the war. This was brought up by the British, and they favored this approach heavily. However, the Khalsa forces were far more skeptical. Led by Ranjit Singh Machathia, they wanted to conduct a more methodical campaign. Knowing their enemy well enough, the Sikhs were concerned about ambushes in the mountain passes and consistent guerrilla warfare after capturing key towns. Ranjit decided to instead march his whole army in a single overwhelming unit, taking Kandahar first before moving on to Kabul. The idea Ranjit had was to prevent ambushes with superior numbers should they ever occur. He then planned on slowly garrisoning the countryside as much as possible with reinforcements while preparing the land for settlers and landowners. Ultimately, the general's plan was adopted. Godwin, the commander sent to lead the British forces, failed at influencing Jinkar, partly because his lack of effort suggested he trusted the Sikhs more on dealing with the enemy. The force marched out on April of 1855, their destination being Kandahar first. The forces that would be awaiting them were those of Emir Dost Muhammad. He had just seized Kandahar a few years back and was still in the process of consolidating the newly won territory. So when he heard of the massive Sikh force coming his way, he sent word to the local commander to rally men for the defense of the city while he prepared to defend Kabul, fearing the Kandahar contingent was a feint. This move aided Ranjit in a significant way. Rather than dealing with the best of the Emir's forces, he would now be up against poorly motivated conscript levies. Screened by their irregular cavalry, the Gorchura, the Sikhs made a steady advance into the region, garrisoning local towns before moving forward to Kandahar. After making the over 200-mile trek, the Khalsa encamped at the plains where the city was located. After receiving additional reinforcements, Ranjit observed the enemy camped near the city. They were led by Sardar Kohandal Khan Barakzai. Apologies for any mispronunciation. Sardar commanded a levy force of about 10,000 local Pashtun troops. Realizing the poor state of the enemy army, Ranjit got his men ready for battle as soon as possible. Sardar, knowing he couldn't allow Kandahar to fall without a fight, got his own men ready. The Battle of Kandahar was a lopsided affair. British guns tore through the Pashtun lines before Khalsa infantry charges broke through and routed the men. Sardar fled the field. The Sikhs captured Kandahar after the battle and garrisoned it while strengthening existing supply lines. For the next 4 months, the Sikh army fortified Kandahar and all the territory they captured. They also started slowly bringing in landowners and tenants from the Punjab region to more solidify their hold on the newly won territory. The British complained about Sikh dawdling, but Godwin knew they were simply being methodical in their conquest of this difficult land, so he didn't raise an issue. Local tribes were co-opted into the Sikh administrative and military functions as best as possible. A few resisted, but many just went along with their new masters. Meanwhile, Lahore sent in new Khalsa levies to reinforce Ranjad. Once August rolled around, the main Khalsa force left, still 40,000 strong, with their 5,000 British contingents, though around 5,000 Sikh veterans stayed behind the garrison Kandahar. The next target was the citadel of Ghazni, on the way to Kabul. For the next 2 months, the Khalsa forces slowly marched through the Arghandab Valley, garrisoning settlements along the way while fending off the Afghan raiding parties sent by Dost Muhammad. By the time the army reaches Ghazni, the citadel has been fortified with a 7,000 strong garrison, mostly made up of local levies. After Kandahar, Dost Muhammad realized the Khalsa were marching in one large army rather than two separate forces, and so he sent some of his commanders to Ghazni in order to slow down the army while he got his men ready for the final showdown in Kabul. The Ghazni citadel was rapidly taken. British guns once again proved their superiority and tore through the walls with relative ease, catching the defenders off guard. The Khalsa forces stormed inside and overtook the bewildered Afghans. Most surrendered or fled. The Khalsa suffered surprisingly light casualties. The citadel was quickly fortified and used as a winter quarters for the army. They stayed there until the beginning of March 1856. By the time Khalsa forces were ready to move on, another 5,000 reinforcements joined up, sent by Lahore to help with garrisoning the captured territory. The Ghazni citadel was fortified by 5,000 veteran troops before the army moved on. Pressing forward, the Khalsa managed to repel a raiding force of 3,000 Afghan tribal cavalry, sent by Dost Muhammad. They then continued on, capturing local settlements in their methodical manner and continuing to garrison troops along the way. This 200-mile trek from Ghazni to Kabul took a staggering extra year to complete. It drove the British crazy with the amount of time being allowed to pass and give the enemy ability to fortify themselves so well. But the Khalsa knew what they were doing. Unlike the Deccan Plateau of the Indian subcontinent, the mountains of Afghanistan were rife with opportunities for effective guerrilla campaigns that, if not properly fortified, could last for years. The steady advance of the Khalsa ensured maximum protection on the rear and everything to be prepared for the Sikh settlers to make new homes in the mountains without worry of reprisals. In April of 1857, the Khalsa finally arrived at Kabul, their 2-year-long odyssey complete. It was a difficult journey, yet had accomplished much. From Kandahar to Ghazni and reaching up to Kabul, all territory had been secured by tens of thousands of Khalsa troops, and all major forms of resistance by the Afghans had been thoroughly dealt with. If they win here, Dost Muhammad had nowhere to hide and regroup. The force the Khalsa had numbered 42,000 troops. Some British casualties via frostbite and additional garrisons by the Khalsa had slightly reduced their numbers from the start of the invasion. Yet many were battle-hardened veterans at this point. 2 years of steady conquest had helped to forge these men into a force to be reckoned with. Opposing them was a substantial Afghan army of 23,000 troops, many well-trained. They were dug in and prepared for the inevitable clash. The battle opened with an artillery barrage by the Anglo-Sikh forces. They targeted the fortified Afghan artillery positions. The Afghans tried to return fire, but their older cannons didn't match the range or firepower of their enemy counterparts. In just over an hour, the Afghan guns were silenced. The Sikh center then advanced forward on the Afghans. The British cannons aided in damaging the cohesion of the Afghan center, and when the numerically superior and better armed Sikhs unleashed their volleys, the Afghans were hardly able to respond effectively. After just a few rounds of volley fire, the Khalsa commanders gave the order, and Sikh forces charged into the beleaguered Afghan lines, easily routing their enemy. Meanwhile, on the flanks, Sikh Gurkha cavalry clashed hard with their Afghan counterparts. The battle was fierce, but the numerical superiority of the Sikhs helped win the fight on both sides, causing a general retreat by the Afghan flanks. Afghan forces quickly retreated into Kabul, prompting Anglo-Sikh forces to begin a bombardment of the city. For the next couple of days, a siege formed around the city, until sappers finally breached the walls, prompting Kabul to surrender. With the fall of Kabul, Dost Muhammad hoped to regroup in the north of the country and prepare to fight a protracted conflict with the invaders. However, upon arriving there, he was captured by invading Russian forces. Seeking to stabilize their newly won territory, the Russians decided to prop up the emir in the north, maintaining the emir of Afghanistan as a Russian-backed entity, thus concluding the Afghan issue for both London and Moscow. Join me next time as I discuss the Second Opium War and the reverberating effects of the American Civil War in this alternate timeline.